From the party spokespeople, Plaid Cymru spokesperson Adam Price.
Thank you very much, Llywydd. I'd like to return, if I may, to the matter of the government's support to the film and television industry, which is a very important and significant sector for our economy and our culture. Last month, the government confirmed in a Freedom of Information request that the Pinewood company no longer pays rent or is a tenant in the Wentlook studio that they signed a rental agreement for in 2014. Now, you did, despite this, let us know that Pinewood are still committed to operating a studio under the management agreement, even though the details of that agreement aren't in the public domain. Is it right then to take from this that Pinewood was paying the Welsh Government to maintain a studio in Wales, and now we're paying them to maintain a studio in Wales? And considering that they're not paying rent, that they're not a tenant either, that they no longer have a role with regard to the Media Investment Fund, is it a Pinewood studio in name alone?
Question.
I will respond to this question as it falls within my portfolio, and because I have answered on this matter in the past. These changes in our relationship with Pinewood follow commercial changes within the structure of Pinewood as a company, and the company that is now responsible for Pinewood's facilities. It is not accurate to say that we as a government are paying Pinewood, but Pinewood have ceased to provide service in terms of managing third-party funds. That is the most significant change. And the agreement that the Welsh Government has renegotiated with Pinewood within that collaborative framework means that Pinewood continues to operate the studio, but that Pinewood doesn't promote as it did in the past under the previous contract.
Well, I'm confused by that response, because I understand that the change of ownership that happened with the Pinewood Group 2 years ago, of course, means that they have withdrawn from the business of providing advisory services with regard to investment, and the Minister referred to that. But that doesn't explain why they no longer pay rent, nor are they a tenant of the studio. That has no connection to that particular question. So if they're not paying rent, how are they maintaining the studio? And some kind of management agreement, this strange agreement that we can't ask for details on. So I have to ask about the procurement process. Was there a process for the management agreement for the studio? Did it happen in accordance with public procurement regulations? Why was the clause in terms of the minimum tenancy of 5 years ignored that was in the original agreement? Why would you have such a clause if you were just going to ignore it? Was consideration given to other options, such as with Bad Wolf Studio, which is rented through a lease agreement with the Screen Alliance Wales? Why wasn't a radical option considered, if I may say so, which is to run the studio directly? Elstree Studios is run and owned by the Hertfordshire Council. Now, if Hertfordshire can run a studio, why can't the Welsh Government?
As I explained in response to a question on this prior to Christmas, the terms of the agreement with the company are confidential for commercial reasons, but I can confirm that the relationship with what was the Pinewood unit continues, but that Pinewood no longer operates that role of third-party fund management. That's the situation as it stands, and that situation remains at present.
Well, I'm sorry, I have to say to the Minister that this isn't good enough just to reread a script that has been given to you. And this follows the questions, several questions that have been asked by Susie Davis, and we haven't received answers to the majority of those questions. Susie and others have had to use freedom of information requests in order to find out that Pinewood is no longer a tenant, and nor is it paying rent. I understand that there is a possibility that there will be a committee of the Parliament Senate looking into this, and I would ask the auditor to do so. But it's not true that because of the dual importance of this sector, not only because of the economy, but because of our culture, that it's unacceptable to hide behind this excuse of commercial confidentiality. It's too important a sector for you to minister to refuse questions and give transparency on, the vital transparency for us in this way.
I am not refusing to answer questions. I have offered to meet with Susie Davis to discuss this issue, and I do hope that we can arrange that meeting before too very long. And given his great interest in this issue, I'm happy to invite Adam Price to the same meeting or to another meeting.